AD, welcome to Star Island. I'm your host, the biggest boss, Ricky Rose. Come with me.
Cause you ain't Rick Ross, right? You look like you might want to be Rick Ross. You might be Flick Floss.
I want to make this clear. I was just asked a question. I see what's still going on with you and 50 Cent. You mean you won't do no business with 50 Cent? I would. 50 Cent, I see you raising money for your film ideas. You asked a close friend of mine. I saw the renderings, the drawings of what you believe your studio could be like in Shreveport. I'm gonna give you a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to come sit down at the table and present your ideas. I won't make you any promises. Men of business don't discuss the past.
About Ross and his career that you have any respect for?
Oh, no, there's nothing there. I never wanted to work.
Imagine if I had the chance to slap 50 Cent with this shit right here. Come get it.
I'm deciding to your life up. Rick, I'm gonna your life up.
Curtis. You're so infatuated with my lifestyle.
You declared bankruptcy. You said you're out of money. And then you irritated the judge in the case because you started posting all these pictures of you that seem to indicate that you have a ton of money. You put up this picture right here of you eating a money sandwich. Yeah. You put this picture up of you opening your fridge and just finding money inside. You put up this picture, these are yours, of your coffee table, which is made of money. Then you put this picture up right here, which says you're broke, spelled in money. And then this one right here, which is just cash coming out of your pants. So why were you doing that?
My audience doesn't understand the difference between Chapter 11 and Chapter 7.
For years, Rick Ross has built an image around success, luxury, and business. From sprawling estates and luxury cars to restaurant investments and chart-topping music, he's often presented himself as one of hip-hop's biggest bosses. But that image recently came under intense scrutiny after fresh money rumors exploded across social media, especially after 50 Cent publicly mocked Ross and suggested he wasn't as wealthy as fans believed. Within hours, memes, reaction videos, and heated debates flooded the internet. Some fans claimed this was finally proof that Ross' empire was cracking, while others argued the internet had once again exaggerated an unverified story for clicks. So what actually happened? Did Rick Ross finally respond to the rumors? And do his comments change the conversation? Or has this become another chapter in one of hip-hop's longest-running rivalries? In today's video, we're separating viral speculation from publicly known facts, breaking down what Rick Ross has said, why 50 Cent keeps fueling the narrative, and why this latest controversy has everyone talking. Stay tuned, because the full story is far more complicated than the headlines suggest. For someone like Rick Ross, money has never just been about wealth. It's been part of his brand. For nearly 2 decades, Ross has presented himself as the biggest boss, building an image around luxury homes, exotic cars, private jets, successful business ventures, and a lifestyle that many fans admire. Whether through his music, interviews, or social media, he's consistently emphasized ownership, investing, and creating generational wealth. That's why the latest money rumors immediately caught everyone's attention. It wasn't simply another celebrity headline. It challenged the very image Rick Ross has spent years building. The controversy gained even more momentum after 50 Cent weighed in. As longtime fans know, 50 and Ross have been trading shots for years, and whenever one of them trends online, the other often becomes part of the conversation. After new financial rumors began circulating, 50 once again used social media to mock Ross, suggesting that his public image didn't match reality. His posts quickly spread across entertainment blogs, hip-hop pages, and reaction channels. Within hours, the internet exploded. Some fans claimed this proved Ross had been exaggerating his financial success. Others argued that 50 was simply doing what he's done for years, turning headlines into entertainment. As memes spread across social media, people started asking the same question. Was Rick Ross really facing financial trouble? Or was the internet jumping to conclusions again? That's where things became more complicated. Many of the viral posts repeated the same claims, but offered very little verified information. One account referenced another. Reaction videos quoted social media posts. Screenshots were shared without clear sources. Before long, the rumors had become much bigger than whatever originally sparked them. That's something we've seen happen repeatedly in celebrity culture. One dramatic headline appears. Dozens of creators repeat it. Hundreds of pages repost it. Millions of people assume it's confirmed. But popularity doesn't equal proof. As the conversation continued, attention shifted toward Rick Ross himself. Fans wanted to know whether he would respond. Would he ignore the criticism? Would he directly address 50 Cent? Or would he finally speak about the financial rumors circulating online? Eventually, Ross did make public comments that many fans interpreted as a response to the ongoing speculation. Rather than admitting to the rumors being true, he projected confidence, continued promoting his businesses and music, and emphasized the success he's built over the years. Supporters saw those comments as a clear message. They believed Ross was telling critics that one round of internet speculation couldn't erase decades of business success. Critics, however, weren't convinced. They argued that confidence alone doesn't answer every question. The debate quickly intensified. One side believed Ross had effectively dismissed the rumors. The other believed unanswered questions still remained. Meanwhile, it's important to remember something often overlooked during viral celebrity controversies. Having financial rumors spread online is not the same as those rumors being verified. High-profile entrepreneurs and entertainers frequently face lawsuits, business disputes, or internet speculation without those stories accurately reflecting their overall financial situation. That's why separating verified information from online commentary is so important. Still, none of that slowed the internet down, because for many fans, this story was never just about finances. It was about one of hip-hop's longest-running rivalries. Every time Rick Ross trends, people expect 50 Cent to respond. Every time 50 posts, fans wait to see if Ross will answer. That cycle has repeated itself for years, turning nearly every new headline into another chapter of their ongoing feud. And this latest controversy was no exception. The more people talked about money, the more they talked about 50 Cent. The more they talked about 50, the more Rick Ross stayed in the headlines. In the end, both names dominated the conversation. But one question still remained. Did Rick Ross' response actually silence the rumors, or did it simply create another round of debate that kept the story alive? That's exactly what we'll explore next, as we break down how fans reacted to Ross' comments, why 50 Cent's trolling continues to attract millions of views, and whether this rivalry has become bigger than the facts themselves. When Rick Ross finally began addressing the latest wave of money rumors, many fans expected an emotional response. Some thought he'd directly call out 50 Cent. Others believed he'd release a lengthy statement explaining every claim that had been circulating online. But that's not what happened. Instead, Ross stayed consistent with the image he's built for years. Rather than focusing on internet criticism, he continued posting about his businesses, music, and lifestyle. Through interviews and social media, he projected confidence and emphasized the success he says he's worked years to achieve. To his supporters, that was the perfect response. Their argument was simple. If someone is truly struggling financially, why would they continue expanding businesses, making public appearances, and promoting new projects? They believed Ross didn't need to defend himself because his career already spoke for itself. After all, Rick Ross isn't known only for music anymore. Over the years, he's built a reputation as an entrepreneur. He's spoken publicly about investments. He's promoted restaurant franchises. He's showcased real estate. He's often encouraged fans to think beyond music and focus on ownership. Because of that image, many supporters argued that one round of online speculation couldn't erase years of business success. But critics weren't convinced. They pointed out that projecting confidence isn't the same as answering every rumor. Some argued Ross was avoiding specific allegations. Others claimed he was simply refusing to give more attention to social media drama. Without direct confirmation of the rumors themselves, those interpretations remained opinions, not established facts. Still, the debate kept growing. And, as always, 50 Cent made sure it stayed alive. For anyone who's followed hip-hop over the last 2 decades, this wasn't surprising. 50 has developed a reputation for turning trending stories into viral entertainment. Whether it's another rapper, an actor, a television personality, or Rick Ross, he often reacts with jokes before anyone else. That's become part of his online identity. His followers almost expect it. Every time Rick Ross trends, people immediately wonder, what is 50 going to post? And more often than not, he delivers. His posts quickly spread beyond Instagram. Entertainment blogs write articles. Hip-hop pages repost screenshots. Reaction channels create videos. Millions of people join the discussion. At that point, the original story often becomes secondary. The reaction becomes the headline. That's exactly what happened again. As Ross continued projecting confidence, 50 continued mocking the situation, reinforcing his long-running narrative that Ross' public image doesn't always match reality. Whether fans agreed with him or not, the strategy worked. People kept talking. But there's another side to this story that often gets overlooked. Rick Ross has faced public criticism before. Throughout his career, he's dealt with controversies, business rumors, and public feuds. Yet despite those moments, he has continued releasing music, growing his brand, and remaining a recognizable figure in hip-hop. Supporters argue that's evidence of resilience. Critics argue that public image and financial reality aren't always the same thing. The truth is, without access to private financial records or verified legal outcomes, outsiders simply can't know the complete picture. That's why it's important to distinguish between internet speculation and confirmed facts. One viral post doesn't establish someone's net worth. One joke doesn't prove someone's financial condition. And one rumor doesn't automatically define an entire career. Even so, perception matters, especially for public figures whose brands are closely tied to success. That's why the latest controversy attracted so much attention. It wasn't just another celebrity rumor. It challenged the image Rick Ross has spent years creating. And when image becomes the battlefield, every comment, every post, and every interview carries extra weight. Meanwhile, fans remain divided. Some believed Ross had handled the situation exactly the right way by refusing to engage in a public back and forth. Others insisted that silence on specific claims allowed rumors to continue spreading. Neither side appeared ready to change its mind, which raises an even bigger question. Has this rivalry reached a point where the facts no longer matter as much as the entertainment? Because every time Ross and 50 Cent become part of the same headline, millions of people tune in, not necessarily because something new has happened, but because they know another chapter in one of hip-hop's longest-running feuds is about to unfold. And in the next part, we'll examine why this rivalry has lasted for nearly 2 decades, how both artists continue benefiting from the attention, and whether either of them actually wants the feud to end. If you've followed hip-hop for any length of time, you've probably noticed something unusual about 50 Cent and Rick Ross. Most rap feuds eventually fade away. Artists move on. New rivalries emerge. People stop paying attention. But somehow, nearly 2 decades later, 50 Cent and Rick Ross still manage to dominate headlines whenever one of them trends. The latest money rumors are just another example. The moment Rick Ross became the center of online discussion, fans immediately looked toward one person, 50 Cent. Not because anyone expected him to provide legal analysis. Not because people believed he had insider information, but because history suggested he'd have something to say. And he did. His jokes spread across social media almost instantly. Entertainment blogs picked them up. Reaction channels turned them into entire videos. Comment sections filled with fans arguing over who had won the latest round. What's remarkable is that this happens almost every single time. That's because the feud has evolved far beyond music. Years ago, most rap rivalries were settled with diss tracks. Today, Instagram captions, themes, podcasts, and viral posts often have an even bigger impact. 50 understands that better than almost anyone. He's built one of the strongest online personalities in hip-hop. He knows how quickly a joke can become tomorrow's headline. More importantly, he understands that attention has value. Every viral post keeps his name in the conversation. At the same time, Rick Ross continues attracting attention through his own brand. Luxury, business, music, entrepreneurship. Every time he showcases another property or promotes another venture, supporters see it as proof that he's continuing to grow despite criticism. Critics, however, often interpret those same posts differently. They argue that social media highlights only the successes, not the challenges. Neither side can fully prove its case from public posts alone. That's why the debate never really ends. It simply shifts from one headline to the next. One week it's a business rumor. The next week it's a social media exchange. Then it's another interview. Then another meme. The rivalry keeps reinventing itself. Interestingly, many industry observers believe both artists have benefited from staying relevant in the public conversation. Every new exchange generates millions of impressions. Music catalogs receive renewed attention. Older interviews resurface. Classic diss tracks start trending again. Even younger fans, who weren't following hip-hop when the rivalry first began, discover its history through new viral clips. In that sense, the feud almost introduces itself to a new generation every few years. But there is another reason it continues capturing people's attention. The two artists represent very different public personalities. Rick Ross often presents himself as calm, calculated, and focused on building businesses. His message frequently centers on ownership, investments, and long-term success. 50 Cent, on the other hand, has built a reputation for sharp humor and relentless trolling. He often turns serious headlines into entertainment, knowing that audiences enjoy watching his reactions as much as the original story. Those contrasting personalities make every public exchange more interesting. Fans naturally compare them. Who handled the situation better? Who looked more confident? Who controlled the narrative? Those questions fuel discussion long after the original news cycle ends. But beneath all the jokes and memes lies an important reality. Public perception isn't always the same as verified fact. A viral post can shape opinions. It can't determine someone's actual financial condition. Likewise, confidence on social media doesn't automatically answer every rumor. That's why separating entertainment from evidence remains important. When it comes to the latest money rumors, publicly available information doesn't establish that Rick Ross is broke. At the same time, online speculation has clearly kept the story alive far longer than a typical celebrity rumor. And perhaps that's exactly why this feud continues thriving. Not because every accusation is proven, not because every response changes minds, but because every new headline gives both sides another opportunity to tell their version of the story. As millions of fans continue watching, the conversation keeps growing. And that leads to the biggest question of all. Did Rick Ross actually silence the money rumors with his response? Or did 50 Cent once again succeed in making himself the biggest story? In the final chapter, we'll break down the lasting impact of this latest controversy, what it means for both artists' public images, and whether this decades-long rivalry shows any sign of finally coming to an end. After weeks of headlines, social media debates, reaction videos, and countless memes, one question remained. Did Rick Ross actually put the money rumors to rest? The answer depends on who you ask. If you ask Rick Ross supporters, they'll tell you the rumors changed absolutely nothing. From their perspective, Ross continued doing exactly what he's always done. He promoted new music. He highlighted business ventures. He made public appearances. He shared glimpses of his lifestyle. To them, those actions sent a simple message. Life goes on. They argued that someone who has spent years building multiple income streams isn't automatically defined by one viral rumor or one social media feud. Supporters also pointed out that public perception often moves much faster than verified information. A trending topic may dominate the internet for several days. Then, another headline appears. Another celebrity trends. Another controversy takes over. Meanwhile, the people involved continue living their lives. But critics looked at the situation differently. They argued that even if the rumors weren't fully verified, they still damaged Ross' public image. Why? Because his brand has always been closely connected to financial success. Luxury cars, private estates, business investments, designer fashion. Everything reinforces the image of the biggest boss. When rumors question that image, people naturally become curious. And curiosity fuels engagement. That's exactly where 50 Cent thrives. For years, he's understood one simple truth about modern entertainment. You don't always have to win an argument. You just have to keep people talking. Every Instagram post, every sarcastic caption, every meme creates another news cycle. Entertainment blogs write stories. Reaction channels upload videos. Comment sections explode. Millions of people participate. From a social media standpoint, that's a victory in itself, because attention has become one of the most valuable currencies online. Whether fans agreed with 50 or defended Ross, they were still discussing both artists. Ironically, that meant both names stayed trending. Some industry observers have even argued that long-running rivalries often benefit both sides. Every exchange introduces new audiences to old music. Classic interviews begin circulating again. Older diss tracks receive fresh streams. Younger fans become curious about how the feud started. In that sense, the rivalry keeps renewing itself. Every controversy becomes another episode in a story that's been unfolding for nearly 20 years. Still, one important point often gets lost in all the excitement. Public arguments don't necessarily reflect someone's complete financial reality. Without verified financial records, court decisions, or official disclosures, it's impossible for outsiders to accurately measure someone's wealth based on internet rumors alone. That's why it's important to distinguish between entertainment and evidence. Those two things don't always overlap. In Rick Ross' case, there has been no verified public confirmation proving the broad online claim that he is broke. At the same time, it's equally true that the internet has shown how quickly speculation can shape public perception. That's the challenge many celebrities face today. Sometimes, the rumor becomes more famous than the facts. And once that happens, correcting the narrative becomes extremely difficult. Even if new information eventually appears, many people only remember the original headline. That's one reason celebrity reputations can be affected by stories that were never fully confirmed. For Rick Ross, however, the latest controversy may ultimately become just another chapter in a career that's already survived countless headlines. He's faced criticism before. He's faced public feuds before. He's faced internet jokes before. Yet he has continued releasing music, expanding business interests, and maintaining a visible presence in hip-hop. Whether fans view that as resilience or simply smart branding depends largely on their perspective. Meanwhile, 50 Cent continues doing what has made him one of the most talked-about personalities in entertainment, turning moments into memes, turning headlines into conversations, turning rivalries into viral content. And, judging by the reaction this time, that formula still works remarkably well. So perhaps the biggest winner wasn't determined by who was right or wrong. Perhaps the biggest winner was the internet itself, because millions of people clicked, commented, shared, debated, and kept the story alive far longer than anyone expected. That's the reality of celebrity culture in the social media era. Sometimes the biggest battle isn't fought in court or on a stage. It's fought in the comment section. Now it's your turn. What do you think about this latest chapter in the long-running feud between Rick Ross and 50 Cent? Do you think Rick Ross handled the rumors the right way by staying focused on his career and businesses? Or do you think 50 Cent once again succeeded in controlling the public conversation with his social media posts? Most importantly, do you think online rumors have too much influence over how people judge celebrities? Or is public scrutiny simply part of being famous? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the biggest stories in hip-hop, celebrity news, and viral internet drama. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.